6:38 p.m. on Monday, February 2nd, 2026. I will call this regular meeting of the Waterbury Select Board to order. Our first item of business is to approve the agenda. I will note that we had consider outstanding special event permit on the agenda. I received an email earlier this afternoon that permit has been withdrawn, so we don't need that agenda item. But is there a motion with regards to the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda with the removal of the consider special event permit item.
Is there a second? We have a motion by Tori, second by Roger. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, agenda is approved. Next up is the consent agenda items. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening to approve the minutes of the special select board meeting on January 27th and to approve the minutes of the special select board meeting on January 30th. Is there a motion with regards to the consent agenda?
I move to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Tori, second by Roger to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda is approved. That brings us to public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone who would like to comment on something that is not already on the agenda we just approved for this meeting. We ask that you keep your comments under 5 minutes, and if you need more time, we're happy to schedule you for a future meeting agenda. And if you're in the room, we ask that you come up here to the table and give your name just so that we can capture you with the owl and folks online can hear you. Is there anyone in the room or online who would like to speak on public comment? Yes.
Thank you. Hey, my name is Wilson Ring. I am the husband of Laura Villalta, the owner of Black Cat Coffee and Bakery. And I came here tonight to on the agenda, the now canceled agenda item, the special event permit, and I'm very pleased to hear that that has been withdrawn, and I will make a very brief comment. We heard about this, the plan to, or proposal to close Rotarian Way for a while. We heard about this through the grapevine, and that had the potential to seriously impact Black Cat's business, and we never heard about it officially. I guess the only thing I would ask is if something like this comes up again, if you could let the businesses know, or specifically ours, if it ever comes up like this again, let us know that it is happening so we can get involved earlier in the process. And that is the only thing I would say. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Is there other folks who'd like to speak on public comment? Roger?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone that braved the frigid temperatures and came out for Waterbury Winterfest this past week. They had nearly record turnout for almost all events. I want to just thank the town and all the community organizations that participated. It was really, I think, a great demonstration of how great this community can be, and just want to make sure that everyone knows that it's greatly appreciated. And then secondly, just in order to promote more transparency, I wanted to comment on the economic development position at Revitalizing Waterbury, questioned at the last meeting. And Revitalizing Waterbury is prepared to come to the next meeting. The board chair, has not had a chance to approve the budget for 2026, and that'll be addressed in the next board meeting next week. So she would like to come at our next meeting, and I can just say that in the meantime that we have hired 2 part-time staffers to replace the economic development coordinator that allowed us to hold the business roundtable in November, and we just completed the reinvestment study documenting that there's been over $6.5 million invested in new construction in downtown Waterbury over this past year. And provide more details at the next meeting.
Thank you, Roger. Other folks who would like to speak on public comment? Anyone in the room? Anyone online? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move on to the next item, which is the Stowe Land Trust presentation. I will say by way of introduction as board chair, I received an inquiry from Stowe Land Trust saying, we're presenting to all the select boards in the area. Can we come to Waterbury? I said, January is an incredibly busy time for the select board. We had a special meeting on Friday to finalize our warning for town meeting. I say that as a lot of lead up to say that this is not a joint meeting with our planning commission or our conservation commission. I know we have members of both of those organizations listening in, but being a good select board chair, I'm just noting that I hope you also reach out to those organizations with more specific expertise, but we knew you were scheduled for tonight, so happy to have you here. And we'll turn it over to you all. I understand, I think you have a presentation that you should be able to share and we'll work on it if needed, but feel free to come up if you want to present and just introduce yourselves and then we can get started. All right, let's see if
Right, we've got kind of a bigger crew here tonight. We're gonna be bouncing around a little bit. So thank you all so very much for giving us an opportunity to come speak and come listen and learn from your community as well. So my name is Tom Rogers. I'm the Executive Director of Stowe Land Trust. Do you guys wanna?
Sure, I'm Matt Kelly, Director of Land Protection for Stowe Land Trust. I live in Elmore.
I'm Amy Earl. I'm the new Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator Fellow. So I've been at the Stowe Land Trust for 5 months and I currently live in Montpelier.
So basically, just to kind of start things out, I've been with the Land Trust for about 1.5 years. As the executive director. Prior to my coming on, one of the things that the board decided on is that we really need to be thinking from a more valley-wide perspective in terms of our mission around conservation. And so one of the outcomes of the recent strategic plan was to kind of both pick up the pace of our land protection projects and expand our conservation region to serve the broader valley. And so just by way of introduction, Stowe Land Trust. We've been around since 1987. Stowe Land Trust was first formed to help conserve Mayo Farm in downtown Stowe, which is where all the rec fields are, and a lot of the farm fields in there. Since then, we've helped conserve about 7,000 acres of land. Until recently, our service area, our conservation area was really just the town of Stowe. And more recently, we've started kind of expanding beyond that. The most recent service area is the town of Stowe plus 2 miles. And now we're looking to potentially expand to the whole valley and are gauging interest really on the interest in local communities as to whether or not this is something that people want, people need in kind of our neighboring communities here. Our core values, I'll just really quickly say access is a really big one. We just created 2 new trail networks. We're in the process of creating 2 new trail networks that are universally accessible so that people in wheelchairs or people with mobility issues can access nature. And the other ones are pretty straightforward. Community, sustainability, collaboration. We work with a lot of partners, including already the Waterbury Lands Initiative on a lot of the Shutesville Hill Wildlife Corridor projects, as well as the Nature Conservancy, Vermont Land Trust, and the rest of them, innovation, next generation, and of course, equity and inclusion. So that really revolves around a lot of things, including access for all. So who we are. So as part of this recent expansion in this expanded capacity, we've pretty dramatically expanded the size of our organization. So in 2010, we had 3 staff members. Right now we have 8, and we're just last week in partnership with Downstreet Community Housing and Development. We closed on our 4th major project in the last 12 months. So prior to recently, we would close on 1 project about every year to 1.5 years. And since then, we've really expanded our size and expanded the pace of land protection. So, you know, really when it comes down to it, our motivation for why we're potentially looking to expand our conservation area is that, you know, more and more, I think people are noticing that a lot of the challenges, a lot of the benefits to living in this area are really becoming more valley-wide. We're becoming more interconnected as communities. You know, we're seeing some of the same traffic issues, some of the same housing issues. A lot of the trailheads in some places are getting really kind of busy and starting to see some of the impacts of that. And so we really wanted to try to think from a more valley-wide perspective on how we can lift all communities in the valley, how we can ease pressure on some of these very popular trailheads. You know, wildlife don't know where the border between Stowe and Waterbury or Stowe and Morrisville or any of those other towns are. They're going to just cross where they need to cross. we want to expand access to nature to make that more universal. And then again, tackle some of these shared challenges that we're seeing around development, around affordability, and around recreation. And so, I think I'll do last one and then pass it to you. So this is kind of what we're thinking as our new conservation area. This is something that we've already run a little GIS analysis on that Matt's gonna go through in just a minute. But really, what we're thinking is the idea of conserving from the ridges to the rivers. And so that's really between the Greens and the Worcesters, east to west, and the Lamoille River, south to Winooski, north to south. And we think that that service area kind of encompasses, geographically, naturally, culturally, kind of one region where it makes sense to be all working together as one big community towards some of these shared goals.
Great, so I'll just kind of walk you through what I focus my attention on, and that's, what exactly are we trying to protect? How do we do it? So basically we're looking to protect lands that have high conservation value. What does that mean? We think of these target lands as falling into one of 5 categories, and sometimes a piece of land can have multiple values along these 5 categories, but basically we're looking to protect working farms, working forests, wildlife and biodiversity, recreation, and importantly, especially in the last few years, flood resilience. Some of the ways that we do that are through identifying these potential projects through our GIS analysis. So each one of those categories has certain criteria that we can look at and analyze to see if it meets a certain threshold for being an attractive conservation project. So for example, we can look at, for a working farm category, what kind of agricultural soils are present. Is the land currently being used for agriculture, either hay, dairy, other crops? And then we look at those 2 categories and can start identifying areas that might make sense for us to pursue, or at least if someone were to come to us, we can run that project through our GIS analysis and come up with a scoring system or some sort of valuation of how important that project would be. Similarly, for things like working forests, we look at, is it enrolled in current use? Because if it's enrolled in current use, we'll have a management plan. We were trying to protect working forests. For wildlife biodiversity, we look at Vermont conservation design layers to see what's the highest priority, what special or rare communities or rare species exist on the landscape, and where are those known occurrences, and we take that into account. So we run all this through our GIS analysis, but that's just one piece of how we select a project. Another one is through community prioritization. And that's part of why we're here. We want to hear from the community, from all the communities that we think about serving, to learn what's important to Waterbury, what's important to Waterbury residents, what's important to the town. And then finally, we work, and this is probably the most important thing, we work with willing landowners. We're not, trying to come in and force our will on landowners. We absolutely respect private property. And so we offer ourselves and our conservation as an option. Some landowners are interested, some not so much. That's not our decision to make, it's theirs, but we just offer ourselves as an option if it's a compelling project. We can conserve land through a couple of different methods. The most popular one is probably conservation easements, which we do a lot of. Or sometimes if it's the right project, we might seek to acquire that and own that piece of land. Other things that we consider, we always are looking to partner on projects where it makes sense with Waterbury Lands Initiative, Vermont Land Trust, VHCB. We're working with Shutesville Hill partnerships. More recently, reconnecting the Greens with Trust for Public Land, Fish and Wildlife. So partnerships is central to what we do. And we will absolutely look to do the same thing as we expand. We follow Land Trust Alliance standards. So we are an accredited land trust through the Land Trust Alliance. So we need to always make sure we're following those standards. We think about the fundraising lift. There's a lot of expensive land in this valley. And if we need to purchase it and fundraise for it, that's another consideration. If it's a donated piece of land or donated easement, we take that into account also. And always, if we can get community support, and that's where we want to be. And so what does community support look like? So sometimes we need to write a grant application to VHCB to get funding for a project. In those grant applications, we will look for letters of support from the Conservation Commission, from the Select Board, just to state that, yes, this is something that the town sees as an important project. So that's sort of how we work. It's a lot more than that and gets a lot more complicated, but that's sort of the general overview.
And so with our new strategic conservation plan focusing on a more valley-wide approach, we really want to make sure that our work is grounded by community input. And so specifically, this new expanded conservation region is going to be encompassing Stowe, Waterbury, and Morristown. So specifically, we really want to hear from these residents to learn more about their values and their priorities. Because no town is the same, we really want to make sure that we're taking our time and hearing from these residents. And I just want to emphasize that the community survey results that I'm going to be sharing in just a moment are in no way exhaustive. This is really just the beginning of our outreach efforts to really reach out to different community members and to hear from them. So that being said, this was posted on Morristown, Elmore, and Waterbury front porch forums. And this was also included in our November and December e-news. So this went to around roughly 2,100 individuals. But again, we're really going to try to reach out to community members more and work with our partners to help spread the word. So here we have preliminary responses by towns thus far. So we've had 52 responses in total. We've had 30 Waterbury residents respond. We've had 18 Morristown, 1 Stowe, and 3 Elmore residents. So some of the questions that we've asked, or no, I'm not going to be giving as much of information on, but we've asked to talk about what type of land conservation projects people can identify in the area, if they've heard about Stowe Land Trust, and as well as how do they feel about us working with the Conservation Commission and landowners in their town. So as you can see, Waterbury community members, they had 70% strongly favor, 10% were neutral, and 20% were somewhat favor. So we had no one identify that they were strongly opposed or opposed to Stowe Land Trust working with their Conservation Commission and landowners. Similarly, from Morristown, we've had overwhelming support with 88% strongly favoring this, 5.9% somewhat favoring, and 5.9% that is neutral. Another question that we asked was how do you think Stowe Land Trust can best serve your community? So again, really trying to hear from residents and how they think that we can best work in their town. And so based on some responses, I've categorized these into groups. So I put them into 6 buckets. We have community access and recreation, planning expertise, education and leadership, wildlife habitat and environmental protection, partnerships and regional collaboration, housing and balanced development, and land conservation and easements. So most people highlighted land conservation and easements. And I have a couple quotes from some of our respondents. So we have people saying, how do they think Stowe Land Trust can best serve their community? We had protecting the Shutesville Hill Wildlife Corridor. We had sharing best practices, investing in land preservation and recreational spaces, partnering with and supporting other existing land preservation organizations to achieve shared goals. So again, this is not in no way comprehensive of what all community members feel, but we just wanted to highlight some of the responses we've been receiving thus far. We also had residents from Waterbury and Morristown indicate how important each of the following items is to them. So these categories are loosely based on what we plan to incorporate our strategic conservation plan around. Matt already touched on those categories. And so we really wanted to see how they prioritize these different categories. So we've had the most support for protecting river corridors and floodplains, with 96% of respondents highlighting that as important. And they're just kind of in order there. So you can see that protecting forests for climate resilience and carbon sequestration is the next most important, and so forth. Another question that we asked Waterbury and Morristown residents was, what are their biggest concerns about land use or development in their town? Again, we really want to garner community support and make sure that we're making sure all residents are feeling heard and we're not just coming into their communities. So again, from the responses that we've gotten, I categorize these into similar buckets. We have public access and recreation, loss of open space, wildlife habitat and corridors, flooding, water quality, environmental resilience, and also housing pressure, affordability, and work. So most respondents highlighted housing pressure, affordability, and poor planning as their biggest concern for land use and development in their town. And some quotes that I've pulled to highlight these are people said that there were issues with development in floodplains. They were worried about loss of open areas for agriculture and wildlife. And they also said it was very hard to find the balance between added needing housing and keeping our town rural and forested. So again, these are not encompassing of all residents, but we just wanted to highlight and point out a couple of quotes that we've received this far. And we're gonna really continue working to advertise and get more community respondents through social media, posting on front porch forums, and working with our community partners to help spread the word.
So yeah, thanks so much, Amy and Matt. Look, I guess I just want to close by saying we're really at the beginning of this process. We really want to be listening and learning to all the communities in this kind of wider area to hear. First of all, if additional conservation, support is something that people are seeking, if it's something that they want. Moving forward, we're gonna facilitate a couple of community meetings, both in Morristown and Waterbury. We're working on trying to find a date to do it in Waterbury, try to get the word out to people so that we can hear what people prioritize, what kind of areas of town people really want us to be focusing on. From there, we're gonna use that community input to kind of finalize our strategic conservation plan, which is, as Matt mentioned, is kind of a very basic foundation for how we prioritize one project over another, but it's not the end all be all of decision making. It's really kind of one of the tools that we use for that. And then finally, of course, working with our partner organizations to continue protecting natural and working landscapes. So partnerships is really central to everything we do in conservation. All of the farm projects that we've done in the Stowe area, we've done in partnership with Vermont Land Trust. We work very closely with the Great Grants Initiative on anything in the Shutesville area. We overlap with the Nature Conservancy, and so we really already have a great relationship with the Waterbury Lands Initiative and have tremendous respect for that organization. And really, what we've been discussing is kind of strengthening that partnership, offering additional resources from fundraising to expertise. We have, as I mentioned, 8 full-time working staff, so we can really kind of bolster their efforts as an all volunteer-led organization. I think we just have one more quick slide, just having people reach out to either Matt or myself with any additional questions. And I'll mention that I think Amy made this slide and didn't include herself, but you're always welcome to reach out to Amy as well. I think she just doesn't want as many emails as she's trying to send to Matt and me, but yeah, we're all of course willing to hear from anybody in the community. So happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. That was gonna be my next question. I guess I'll just say by way of reflection, I'm really encouraged to hear this is the early part of the process. And we'll just say in candor, I was on an email with there's been a survey? What survey? I didn't hear about their survey. And so I'm a select board chair. I do subscribe to your newsletter. I try and stay up to date on FPF, and I will say we have a town plan survey going on, and we got 400 responses. So just to say, I think there's a lot more outreach that could be done in Waterbury. So looking forward to hearing about more ways for that. I guess, is there a clear ask of us today, or is this just info sharing around your next?
This is info sharing and just, it's how can we support you and how can we what are some avenues that you suggest that we can listen and learn from the Waterbury community? I think our goal is to really kind of start by doing that and then, going from there based on the feedback that we receive. I'll share that, just as an example of the type of projects that we're working on, we just last week closed on a project in Morristown that's called Muddy Moose because that was the name of the property beforehand. Muddy Moose. Yep. And so it was a short-term rental business with 8 homes on the property, and then it had 150 undeveloped acres. And so we partnered with Downstreet Community Housing and Development. They purchased the 8 homes. They're turning them into full-time resident deed restricted homes that are going to be affordable community homes. And we are protecting the 150 acres and are going to open that up to the public. It has a Nordic skiing and hiking trail network on it already. And so that's the type of thing that we're really kind of looking to do and seeing if the community has further interest in.
Awesome, thank you. Do board members or staff have questions to start? Roger?
Yeah, it was exciting, and I appreciate you taking the time to address this. I was wondering, do you have any Waterbury residents on your board?
So we have a Waterbury resident who is a member of our emeritus board members, and so she served nine years and turned off, I think, a year ago. But she's now still very much engaged. She's kind of co-chairing our conservation committee, which makes all the decisions as to which projects we're doing. And then we actually just recently invited Steve Hogwood from Waterbury Lands Initiative to join our conservation committee, which again makes most of the planning decisions around the organization.
Just a quick follow-up, there are lots of people in the room and online that have a lot more detailed information to share with you than I will. But I'm somewhat familiar with the Shutesville corridor, wildlife corridor, and just wondering what your experience has been working with Waterbury on that.
We've had a great experience with that. I mean, so thus far, I would say that, Waterbury Lands Initiative has really started ramping up over the last few years, and they've become a major player in that. On the Waterbury side of the line, it's mostly been Vermont Land Trust, who's been working with a lot of the landowners on the Waterbury side of the line. We've been a partner with them, but they've been really the ones doing the heavy lifting and the fundraising and the projects. And so I could see us kind of getting a little bit more involved in that side of the line. Vermont Land Trust, as you may expect, has a statewide mission, and so it's not always easy for them to focus on kind of a smaller area like the Shutesville Wildlife Corridor. So that's one of the ways we're hoping to bring additional capacity on that side of it.
Thank you.
No, I just thank you for coming in. I think there are a lot of people in here that would be very useful for you to talk to, especially with the Conservation Commission around. And if you want to come and talk to us, we're a small group, but Rotary would love to have you come speak to us.
Yeah.
We've had several of our members come speak to us, still Rotary, it's always a blast.
Yeah,
really
the
enjoy
Waterbury.
No, yeah, I know, yeah, the Waterbury Rotary, so yeah, no, I'm happy to speak to any Rotary, it's
Great.
always a good meal and a good time, so.
Cool. I'll let them know.
Yeah, please do,
There's a man.
yeah, oh yeah.
We'll do breakfast.
Oh, there you go.
Awesome. Any other board or staff questions or comments? I'll turn it over to members of the public with questions or comments, starting with board members for any of our respective planning conservation.
I'm just gonna have to excuse myself. Sorry, I have another commitment.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you so much.
So this will be here.
Okay.
Thanks. Does anyone have questions? I'll go Martha and then. And will you just come up and say who you are and what board you're with, just for transparency?
Here, sit next to me or Roger.
Ooh.
She's on my side.
I'm chair of the planning commission. That's my pitch, come and talk to us. As Alyssa said, we're in the midst of a new town plan. I won't even say an update, it's a new town plan, and natural resources, land conservation are significant chapters. We reached out just specifically to the Shutesville question or area. We sent notice to all landowners. So this, like Alyssa, I didn't know anything about your survey either. So more outreach there would be super helpful. So I guess that's it. I think engaging, if you're gonna continue, which I'm assuming, continuing work south of the border, if you will, please engage with the landowners, because while they've heard parts and pieces, they're not reading front porch forum all the time. There's little landowners, big landowners, they just want to know what's going on.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I would just say in regards to the survey, like we really are at the beginning process of that. The only reason we presented is more to just say, these are the types of questions we're looking for. And this is the very preliminary feedback, but we're always open to any avenues to get that out as well.
It's hard.
It is. Oh,
Like you
totally.
said, we had 400,
Yeah.
but we were beating the bushes
Oh,
to
I
get
can
people.
imagine, yeah, no, we really just started, thank you.
Chris?
My name is Chris Fiennes. I'm a resident of Waterbury. I'm what they call a native Vermonter, and I only say that because when I was born here, I had no say in that. So my question is, land acquisitions, in today's financial stressful world here living in Vermont, how are you guys capable, or are you capable of competing with the excessive costs of property? How do you navigate that to try to make it worth the landowner to, or how do you structure things to make it more appealing to landowners that have, say, incredible agricultural potential, try to preserve that and then in this market, how does what you're doing kind of fly in the face of the state's effort to try to continue to bring more people in here to so-called lower, make the cost of living more acceptable, which nobody's proven works yet, but yeah, I'll just stop there.
No, those are great questions. That's exactly the type of thing we think about all the time. So, here, I guess I'll face everyone since you asked the question. Affordability is really at the center of so much of what we're thinking about. So over the last 4 months, we've closed on 3 projects. 2 of them have been in partnership with Downstreet Community Housing and Development. And in both of those projects, we're creating more, deed restricted, long or full-time resident community housing. We are first and foremost a conservation organization, and that's always going to be the side of the partnership that we land on. But it is something that's at the center of everything we think about. I've lived in Stowe since 2010, and my wife and I bought our home there in 2012. Since then, it's tripled in value almost, which is insane to me. And people say, well, great, that's a great investment. And I think, well, it just means that other people who make for the same amount of money I do can't live in Waterbury or Stowe or Morristown. It makes the cost of living here really inaccessible. So I think we need to be thinking about that first and foremost. One of the things that we think about is a particular land property or project better suited for housing? And if it is something that the community would make better use as community housing, we would never compete with that. In fact, we would go in probably as a partner on something like that. So it's definitely something we think about in terms of being able to raise the money, with the changes to this valley that we've all seen. Honestly, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. It makes everything less affordable for all of us who are trying to scrape by and make a living here. At the same time, there are people who of very high capacity for whom this type of work matters and who are willing to, invest the money in kind of protecting a lot of the things we love about this valley. So just by way of an example, on this Muddy Moose project, there were new donors who had just moved to this area that I'd never met with just 2 weeks ago, who on my first meeting commit $200,000 to this Muddy Moose project because they really believed in this housing and conservation mission. So there are just people with that level of capacity who will fund work. We're really trying to spread that funding out so that we're rising all ships in this valley.
I've got some people that have some incredible property that rather than turn it into housing, bring it.
Yeah, we're happy to talk to people.
So,
And the biggest thing that I would just emphasize, and I'll get out after that, is that our mission is that we always work with willing land. So we never strong arm anybody, we never try to undercut anything or anything like that. It's always, if a landowner is really interested in selling or doing an easement, we're always there to have that conversation. If there's a development project, sometimes something comes up in Stowe and everybody says, oh, Stowe Land Trust, you guys should speak up and be picketing and rally the people against that. That's not our mission. It's not what we do. We're agnostic to everything around that. All we do is work with willing landowners on projects when it needs expertise. So I'm sure there are other groups out there that could be supportive or opposed to particular development projects, but that's not the way we operate.
If you're willing, I have 2 more questions. I know Steve Hagenboo is in the room, and then Amy, I see you online. Steve, if you want to come up.
Great, thank you. I'm Steve Hagenboo. I live up in Waterbury Center, and I'm the co-chair of the Waterbury Land Initiative. And I really just wanted to come up here to kind of reiterate what has been said, where the Waterbury Land Initiative is very excited that Stowe Land Trust is looking to expand their service area and to assist in conservation projects here in Waterbury. As a small grassroots volunteer nonprofit, Tom already mentioned our resources, our ability to engage in a lot of activity is somewhat limited. And by having Stowe Land Trust come and work with us here in Waterbury, we have the opportunity to have much more impact. Again, for those landowners who are raising their hand and say, yes, we want to think about long-term protection options for our land. So really excited to have them coming down and working with us here.
Thank you very much. Amy, go ahead.
Yes, hi, everyone. And yeah, Tom and I had an opportunity to go align this afternoon. So I think we've got to that. I just want to also say, echo what Martha said, and you, Alyssa, as I communicated to you, we were surprised by the survey. And my sensitivity, just to put it out there, is making sure that I know that we are engaging our Waterbury residents pretty heavily right now and have been for a variety of different reasons, but more specifically around the municipal plan. And so I'm sensitive to that. And I think we're going to need to continue to stay sensitive to that. The only other comment that I would raise here for our select board and the planning commission for note is that while I have conceptual agreement with where this is going, and I think it's a great resource to have this Stowe Land Trust that has both the capability and the capacity, I think we're also going to have to be mindful of if some of these priorities may be incongruent to what we're putting forth in our municipal plan. So we just want to be helpful on how can we stay connected in such a way that it doesn't start to create division coming from us, if you will. So just having said that, I think that there's more to learn here. The other piece of feedback that would be helpful is to get a hold of that strategic plan that the Stowe Land Trust has so that we can have a better sense of what their aims are and then how that may dovetail nicely with what we're aiming to do. And then if there's any gaps, how best we can identify those and figure out how to support.
Thanks, Amy. If you want to say anything, Roger.
You mentioned a couple of times this valley, and you know, we're parochial. We tend to think of ourselves in the Winooski River Valley, but I do get the concept of being between two mountain ranges here. What do you call this valley?
That's a really good question. I have tried to figure that out for quite some time, whether it's the Mansfield Valley or, you know, it's a hard question because unlike the Mad River Valley, which has like a valley name and it kind of a little bit creates an identity, it's a little funny thing. You know, we've actually talked about as part of this process, do we rename ourselves? And if there was a really obvious answer to that, if we were in let's say Warren or Waitsfield, we would be instantly the Mad River Land Trust or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, and our board has really wrestled with that and not come to any great answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just so you know, there is a little bit of a rivalry between our towns.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, a name change should be further considered.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
I don't think that'll stop anybody from working with you though.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to share? Otherwise, we're right around at the time, but I'm happy to take one or two more questions if there are any. Any last call questions? Right. Thank you folks so much for coming in. Really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you guys.
You emailed a PDF, right? So just to say, we can get that on the municipal website. I think our tech person is having email access issues, but we will put that up in the morning so folks can come back to this.
I just want to also, if I just pass this around, has the
Please.
survey as well then. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thanks,
It's
Cody.
appreciated.
Looks like we have stopped the screen share. Things are happening and we are pretty close to schedule. So it's 7:17. I'm noting that the next item was the one that we removed because there no longer was an outstanding special event permit. So by way of introduction, I will note the updated nameplate of Bill Woodruff, our interim municipal manager, coming at you live from this first meeting. So thank you again, Woody, for all of your support. And again, this was just open time if you wanted to provide any updates for the board or the community.
Yeah, no, I've just basically been getting started, trying to catch up on some reading on what you folks have been up to for the last few months specifically. So next meeting will come with a few asks, what I'd like to do to certain things, but yeah, just getting my feet wet right now.
I think the comment was he's getting his feet wet, but don't freeze. Do any board members have questions? Woody just said he's getting up to speed on everything we've been doing, so we'll have more asked at our future meeting, noting our next official meeting is February 17th, and we can talk about tonight if we think we have enough on the agenda to warrant a special meeting before then. Any other questions for Woody as municipal manager? All right. All right, seeing no questions, I'll move on to the next thing, which is review next steps and updates for flood mitigation projects, including Randall Meadow bond vote. And I think Dana Allen showed up. Hi, Dana.
This is time. Finish my grocery shopping, Justin. Right.
I don't know if you have his presentation. This was just a name on the ongoing list of things we're managing. We met with you previously. We decided not to go for another CDBG DR application, but we still have plenty of work in the hopper. So don't know if you have any outstanding updates, again, looking ahead to the bond vote meeting or otherwise.
No substantial updates on this. I think, we have, sort of the question and answer on the bond vote that I know that Tom and Woody have been working on, correct? We've got some good clarity on some of those things. I have been working on a bit of a presentation for that, which I'll continue to work on and be in touch with Woody about, just what this project is. It is a complex project. It's an expensive project, so it'll take some time, so maybe having a little bit more background for that for the public would be good to understand why we're going to the town and asking for this particular bond and this amount. So that is something that I'm working on. Did you move the CDBG DR?
I didn't move it on the agenda, but feel free to discuss relevant items that are on our agenda
Okay,
later.
yeah, so we're moving along the contracting process for that. So I know that Woody and I have a meeting next week. Talk with staff from ACCD about that, some of the contract requirements we have to do, the first of which being environmental release. So we're working on that for Randall Meadow. That's a condition of getting the award, so that's in process right now. We're likely gonna have to hire a consultant for that. That is an eligible expense for reimbursements. So once awarded the grant, we can actually draw funds from the grant to pay for that consultant. But we have to do that process first to be able to get those funds. So like I said, that's in process, and we're getting good guidance from the state on things like that. They are helpful with this. So that is nice. It's a complex thing. And similarly with some of the other DRs, like you mentioned, we've decided not to go forward with Union Suite Housing as the primary applicant, but we are still working on the Woody Ave Housing DR grant. And working on that same environmental release. That's a planning project, so much simpler in terms of the level of assessment. So I think we're actually going to be able to complete that primarily in-house. And again, Woody and I have been in touch on that with VCDP staff as well to complete that. So I think we've got that one fairly well in hand at the moment. Realistically, that's about all for me at the moment. I know that next steps that we have are drafting and issuing RFPs for a lot of this work. So for that ER for Randall, and then subsequently the ER or the RFP for design work, which tees us up for future grants, which is a big part of this bond vote. We want to get more money than this 2 million. So we need to do that design work as soon as possible to line us up for that funding. Issuing the RFP for the Woody Ave housing project, to do that planning work. And then I'm continuing to work with CDRPC on the townwide flood resilience alternative study. So we haven't heard anything from them. They were doing some contracting, but I need to be in touch with them about revising grant budget amount and potentially scope a little bit to move that forward. Because we want to issue that RFP as soon as possible to get that townwide study going. So that's primarily my updates, honestly. Questions?
Yeah, thanks, Dina. Questions or comments from the board or staff? I would, oops, sorry, was that hands, Roger, Tori? Okay, we all just.
I was just wondering, any further update on the clean water, grant potential?
The Clean Water Fund grant,
Yeah.
through the Clean Water Service Provider.
Hmm.
So, no, primarily because for Randall Meadow specifically, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, so essentially, that's why we wanna push that design RFP out as quickly as possible. Cause what that does is it gives us some more concrete phosphorus reduction numbers through floodplain reconnection. So essentially, the more phosphorus we sequester, the more money we are potentially eligible for to a limit, to a degree. And we've been in touch with those funders for the last year and change. We've heard different amounts of funding. I think we're south of $1 million for total funding pot potentially, but I'd like to push for more. Because we're honestly we're one of the largest, most meaningful floodplain reconnection projects in the state, frankly. And so I think that we can push for a fairly decent budget on this. But we need that phosphorus reduction number, and they're super hesitant to commit to anything until we have a fairly solid number based on past experiences with other projects that haven't returned quite the benefit that they initially advertised. So, it's my dream that RFP goes out as soon as possible. We select a consultant, and then once we're cleared via environmental release, we have to get that done before we can really do anything else. So once we get that ER done, we have our consultant lined up. Ideally, we can cut them loose on work as soon as possible. So in an ideal world, by fall, we should have some decent phosphorus reduction numbers. At least that's, again, my ideal optimistic timeline. Clean Water Fund is on a rolling application. So essentially, we can put in an application, at any point. They usually review quarterly, and they can make a decision. They do have about $2 million annually that they're allocated. So they have money in hand. They're looking to spend money. We're a good candidate for it. I'm pretty confident that we'll get a decent amount of funding through that means, but again, it's that P reduction number that we really need, that cost benefit.
Yeah, and I would consider anything close to $1 million a decent amount that would not offset whatever would be coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. And I think it'd be helpful to have that timeline sort of laid out for us so we could better understand the importance of this bond vote and how it fits into accessing some of that funding.
Heard.
Other questions or comments on this? Thank you, Dana, for the update. I'm noting in terms of what is it, primer, we were calling it on the bond vote. I do think we have an older version on the town website. I know Tom updated that before our last meeting, so I have on the housekeeping notes to make sure we have the right version circulating. And I think we also were asked to put that on Front Porch Forum, maybe the homepage of the town website, just some more places to cut it out. So in terms of the actual outreach for the bond vote, that is on my to-do list.
You make sure I get that too, so I can drop it into the dispatch.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Chris.
ask
Yeah.
any questions. So we talked about,
Chris, can you come up here for
Oh, yeah.
everything?
We gotta be on TV.
Talked about the phosphorus capturing process, and the funding that's, designated for that. In this particular scenario, if it floods, we will, it's potential that we will capture some form of silt, deposits. And is there any funding? There's funding to help assist in the capture area, but is there funding to help assist in removal of that? Because part of this project relies on the fact that the new grade level that we're bringing it down to stays on that. And is there funding to then remove that and an ongoing, maintenance process as needed? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, and also, so there's a couple things happening with that, right? Like, with these floodplain reconnection projects, we're essentially establishing an area for sequestration, like you said, like getting that sediment, getting that silt in that area. Chemically bonding to the soils and then also getting up, basically, getting sequestered in vegetation that grows on that site, right? So we have a bit of a phosphorus budget for any of these sites. We're removing so much material that the thinking, the modeling and the ideal is that if you're removing 100,000 cubic yards, it's gonna take a lot of floods and a lot of events to even really start to have an impact on that void, right? We're really trying to create a lot of space for water storage. The sediment fraction of that water is relatively small. So we're creating this like ephemeral bathtub for the water, right? We're ephemerally storing the water. And then we're hoping that that sediment drops out. That's a natural process of the floodplain, right? And then that's actually not that significant, usually, an amount of material, typically. All of this is based on modeling and ideal scenarios. I can't guarantee that like we won't get a crazy flood that somehow has a massive sediment load that does bring in inches of material across 40 acres. The likelihood of that is very low. The possibility of it maybe exists. So as far as your question, that's a long answer to get to this. As far as your question is, what do we do in terms of clean out? Typically, these clean water fund projects for floodplain reconnection have like a 30-year lifespan, between 15 and 30 years, depending on how you structure the funding and you know, basically the operation and maintenance agreement. And so in that time period, the thinking is that you don't actually remove material, right? That's part of the sequestration process. 30 years geologically, pretty short. That sediment took a long time to get there, so I think that like the thinking is in that short a time period, you're not gonna see a significant amount of accumulation. After that time period, there could be other operation and maintenance concerns, right? Like cleaning out or removing material in certain areas to increase its function. That's possible. Is there funding for that in a clean water fund? Not that I'm aware of currently. That would fall under something like what we're leveraging to do this project in the first place. So this disaster recovery grant, a hazard mitigation grant program grant, or other like FEMA public assistance monies or some variation on that. So I don't know exactly where the money would come from for that. It's not broken. But again, I think that the likelihood of having to do that in a short term is pretty low.
Well, nature concerns,
It is true.
Any other questions or comments on this? And Dana, I just wanted to note with regards to the 850 agenda item, these are just things that need to be adopted also as part of compliance as we reviewed with Tom. Is there anything else you want to add on that?
No, other than I think, just for the sake of continuity, like I just need to talk with Woody and make sure that like we're staying up on this stuff because Tom was running point on that. And I was hands off with a lot of that stuff. So I can be a little more hands-on in this transition, but I just need to, you know, chat with Woody and make sure that we're dotting I's and crossing T's because there's a lot of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I saw a seatbelt executive order as one of the things we're covering in this. So later on tonight, we'll review all the things we're saying yes to. Is there any other questions or comments? Awesome. Thank you very much, Dana, for all your work and for coming in. Any other questions or comments on this topic before we move on? Alrighty, I will move us on to our next agenda item, which is review next steps and updates for the Stanley Watson property. This has not been on our agenda for a while. By way of orientation, I will say as is currently posted on the municipal website. The select board issued a request for qualifications several months ago. We received one response back to that, a redacted version of that response is on the municipal website. And that's essentially been the status update at this point. I know, Roger, you had a proposal with regards to next steps, but that's kind of, we need to discuss that as a board. And so that's the purpose of this agenda item is just to outline the next steps for that moving forward.
We, as I understand it, we have a offer from DEW. And I think there are a number of members of the community that have viewpoints on this. And I think it's incumbent upon us to get those viewpoints out and make a decision as to whether we want to move forward with this exclusivity proposal or not.
Do you have a more specific proposal around how we would do that?
I would propose that we set a date in the near future to have a public hearing on this and invite the public to attend. I don't have a date in mind, but you have an electronic calendar.
So in candor, this was Roger's proposal. This agenda item is to facilitate this discussion among the board members present with regards to next steps. Kane?
Looking over Roger's calendar here, so when is our next meeting? 17th?
17th is proposed. It's 16th is a federal holiday.
Sure is. For a more robust discussion with the community on this, would the 17th work for anyone else on the board?
I've heard
It's
that
the public hearing. So the comments I heard was, would the 17th work? The 17th is our regular meeting. It's just on a Tuesday because of the federal holiday. As is noted in italics on the agenda, it does include the public hearing for the Randall Meadow bond vote. That's mostly a formality in that we say this is the public hearing. We allow public and comment. We have to have those minutes submitted. I will say in my mind, having the outcomes be clear prior to that may be useful for folks. So I'm not opposed to having them the same night. I guess there is the question of consecutive decision making. And I guess Woody's already alluded to a bunch of other to-dos for the board. So speaking for myself, I think a special meeting at some point is probably prudent given the amount of work we have going on right now.
Sure.
So you think like a special meeting maybe February 23rd? Or
So Tori was saying February 23rd. I mean, up to folks. I think in one sense, next week would be the most compelling because of having it prior to the 17th. I'll just name like other tasks I'm doing as your select board chair is preparing a report for the town report that's going to be published that needs to go to the printer this week. So I'm just trying to have clear information to convey to the community about what the next steps are. And if that isn't having a determinative decision either way, how does that?
Does next week work for you?
Me, sure.
I mean, next week works for me. I just, one has their proposals and release. I can't remember.
There's a redacted version on the town website. Yep.
Great. Okay. My only concern is, do we feel that 1 week is enough notice to give the residents to tell them to come hang out with us on the night?
Great question.
I would go as far as to say is we have this super well-read local paper. And the editor's sitting right there.
I think maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amy had her hand up first online and then you, Pete, does that work?
I'm just going to offer the week of the 23rd is going to be a school vacation week. And I don't know about population availability that week. So just something to consider.
Really good to consider. Thank you, Amy. That's really helpful.
Peter?
Yep. So this is a pretty big decision, you know, concerning a lot of people in the town, and 4 of you are off the board in like a handful of weeks or less than that. So I'm just wondering if maybe bumping this down the line as to give the new board a chance to really kind of go over it and assess the redacted version. I mean, or not the non-redacted version, it's the actual plan. So I'm just wondering if maybe as opposed to setting the next board up, not hampering them in what decisions they can make, but providing them the ability to make all decisions as opposed to locking them into.
Other folks have questions or comments? Bill?
We're gonna stay here because.
Oh,
They're down with phones. If you're going to have it sooner rather than later, I would suggest you call it a public information meeting, it's not a public hearing, it's a public hearing that requires a certain. Important time period, so. Public information meeting would be more appropriate.
For the purposes of the speaker, Phil suggested that we call it a public information meeting so that we do not trigger any mandatory time warning periods by calling it a
other questions or comments from the board?
Just a point of information, do we know if DEW has put any time constraints on the on this offer?
I don't have information.
I didn't see anything.
There you go. I don't know that a public information meeting is going to put any serious constraints or lead to a immediate decision on the part of the board. It's just, this has been going on for some time. I think it might be helpful to have it before town meeting, so that people feel like they're informed coming into town meeting.
Okay,
I agree with Roger. I think holding an informational meeting before town meeting is helpful.
Right.
No? Any other? Okay.
We'd also have an informational meeting and to your point, choose to not take action on it. We just have to be upfront at the informational meeting about whether that's a determined thing or not, in terms of transparency, but we can have an informational meeting.
I would offer to see if the fire department is open for an informational meeting on the second floor on the 9th of February.
I would like to add to start that meeting at 7.
I will say, I know we have multiple planning commission members in the room and it is their regular meeting night. And what night are you guys? The 9th, which is a Monday. Or next Monday
Would you
specifically.
like to suggest a different night? I'm not.
Yeah, we're doing 3 chapters. That's.
Mhm.
As a planning commission member, I would like to suggest maybe the 10th Tuesday. Because I'm sure that there are many planning commission members who'd like to attend myself.
Yeah.
I can make the 10th work.
Yeah, also.
Might want to check with the fire department, they meet on Tuesdays,
Yeah,
every other Tuesday, I'm not sure if they're on that.
it also happens to be RW's board meeting. Doesn't work for me. How about the 11th?
And the Conservation Commission is meeting on the 10th,
So the 11th.
How about the 11th?
which we can move if we need to, so I'll be flexible. I just want to let you know.
I like the 11th.
Everyone like the 11th?
EFUD meeting on the 11th.
Great, there's a really wonderful.
But
book
they
fair
meet way
being
early.
held at Ridgeside.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. 4:30, they're usually
Yeah.
done by 5:30.
We're gonna go till 7, I'd say.
No, they're not gonna go to 7.
Oh, you're suggesting Thursday the 12th. Yeah.
Why?
Because I would like to go to the book fair held by Ridgeside Stones Throw, very selfishly.
What time's that get out?
Thursday the 12th, how many people like Thursday the 12th?
I gotta look.
I don't think
You
Cheryl's
pushed me
gonna be
too
there
far.
Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, we go back to Wednesday.
Wednesday the 11th. I think that's,
Sorry.
I saw the most hands on that. Okay, and I will reach out to Chief Dillon.
At 7 PM pending.
7 PM, you like 7 PM? Does that give you time to start your car?
I'm also in Windsor until 4.
4:15, Windsor, easy.
I can make that work. I can make it.
I have a class from 6 to 8, but
You have a
you get me for
class
one more
6 to 8?
second, so I'll be there. Wednesday, the 11th at 7. Okay,
Given the friends that can take notes for me.
Wednesday, the 11th at 7 PM, pending location availability.
Yes.
Okay.
Cheryl will be there if you're not coming.
I think Cheryl can be there on the 11th. Yes. Is there any other questions or comments on this item? Peter?
Yeah, can I just ask, will we be able to see a non-redacted version of that before the meeting? Like a proposal? The redacted version is kind of like cut and paste from all the other ones.
Yeah,
But has no meat to it.
yeah, I'll have to check. I know, again, we got a legal review before redacting it on the portions we could review, and I don't know what, if any, flexibility there are for those items, so I don't know that I can answer that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? All right, so we'll plan for a public information meeting Wednesday, the 11th at 7 PM. To solicit further public input on this item. And again, if we're able to share more info before that meeting, we will do so. Any other questions on this agenda item? Okay, then I will move us on to the next agenda item, which is consider reaffirming Waterbury Housing Trust Fund allowable uses. We have the document that the board originally adopted. I saw the minutes today when I was doing my review of the year in Selectboard. We have printouts in front of us. This was a very specific document around the trust fund. I will note that we just finished warning town meeting. And for the proposed reserve fund that, oh, I have like 3 copies here, so maybe I see Roger and put them all straight away. Yeah. Here's a printed one and it's on the plate. We did reference this document around allowable uses. As we can see, there's some nice things like an all cap sentence that says include a statement on administrative costs no more than 10%. So at a minimum, it feels like we need some healthy clerical updates in this document. But wanted to bring it back to the board, presuming that, again, we referenced this in the town meeting warning saying for the allowable uses, we referenced this document. So what, if any, portions of this we would like to copy that potentially then would be governing the housing reserve fund that we're proposing creating at town meeting.
Housing task force taking a position on this.
They presented us with the original document. I should say this original document was drafted and proposed, I think fair to say, by Joe Camarata and the Housing Task Force, because we received questions about that previously.
And we don't have any recommended changes at this point.
I don't think we asked them for any changes. I just put this on our agenda because we had referenced the document after Joe was kind enough to screen share it for us at our previous meeting. Kane?
I've spent the last 2 weeks reading and then reading again these allowable uses, and I just changed in real time where it says include a statement on administrative costs at no more than 10%. I just wrote a sentence that does that, where it says no more than 10% of grants/loans may be used for administrative costs. I feel like that. After doing the rest of that, I think the rest of it, as I've read it so many times in the past week, I think the rest of it is fine for reaffirmation to be used for the reserve fund, would be my professional opinion. I don't see any major holes in any of these uses, as essentially as Sandy has been kind enough to describe to us. It is just moving the fund into the right pocket.
Thanks, Kane. I see Roger has a hand up and then I have a comment. Go ahead.
I heard that we had 2 applications. Yeah, this fund.
Yes, Joe. Yes, 2 applications for the fund. I have
heard officially from Down Street, but that's not my word.
And I spoke with both of them in my zoning admin capacity, because they had some questions around permitting the work.
You guys didn't have to give me a leaving present.
But I also understand that the process of actually dispersing the funds takes some time. So my concern was that if we put this on the ballot, which I think is pretty much set, to say we're gonna take the 175,000 and put it in a reserve fund, that would not handcuff us from distributing this funding to the two applicants, because they won't be actually receiving the money until after this vote on the 3rd of March.
Yes, and I think just to be clear, the goal of putting it in a reserve fund is you're putting money in a reserve fund where it can be spent by the select board for approved uses. So the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program is a more specific program than the allowable uses, but one that meets the allowable uses. So we should be able to consider using it in your way.
Tori is it?
Okay, Tori, I have a comment and then we have two online. Go ahead.
For consistency purposes, should it be the Waterbury Housing Trust Reserve Fund throughout the document? Is that too long?
Great question. When we were copy editing the warning for town meeting, it is that housing reserve fund, I believe. Let me just pull up the warning. It's on the town website.
I believe it is housing.
I would propose changing it to match.
So the article in question we're discussing is Article 12. Again, this one's already warned, and it's shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Waterbury Housing Reserve Fund for the purpose of supporting housing initiatives and incentives in alignment with the Waterbury Housing Trust Fund allowable uses in accordance with BSA 2804. So we referenced the name of this document because this is what we had available.
Okay, so
We just chose to not make the reserve fund be called a trust, which we maybe could have for more clarity, but here we are.
Okay.
My one comment is, I think under background, town of Waterbury recognizes that access to affordable housing continues to be a challenge. I would suggest striking the next two sentences. There just has been comments that folks who like, I don't think there's anything substantively wrong or they're majorly off base, but rather than needing to discuss the nuance of them, I don't think they need to be in this document and would suggest for affirmation we remove the next two. I don't think the core reason needs to be in there, and we already have a local option tax policy that we previously adopted as a board. Kane?
I'm going to even recommend to go a step further, as we are referencing in the warning the allowable uses section of the entire document. Is it prudent to strike lines from the document that the allowable uses are included in if we are only referencing and using the allowable uses for the reserve?
I am typing on Zoom because someone was in the meeting room and someone else is gonna have to respond to that right now.
Are you saying like, don't change this because?
Well, I'm just asking if it's necessary to change any of the lines further or throughout the document when we have simply referenced the allowable uses from this document. On page two. Think about it.
I do think the definition of affordable housing is useful to maintain. We've had questions about what's workforce, what's not. We're defining it explicitly as supporting up to 120% area median income, and I think that's useful to have codified for future boards and for reference around the supportive programs.
And to respond to King's suggestion, I don't think that detracts from the document to strike those two sentences that you're suggesting, because I think it helps update.
My comments were solely about expediency.
Well,
And that ship is way off
Can't
the
sacrifice
horizon.
quality.
All right, we have Amy and then Sandy online. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, this might be small, and forgive me, I'm just reading through this a little more thoroughly this evening, not as much as Keen. my comment though is in the first paragraph, second paragraph, excuse me, it says, third, the town set a long-term housing goal to increase the local rental housing. I'm wondering if it makes sense to add the word long-term here, because I wonder if there's a way to get around and still create housing that's tailored for short-term rental. And I don't think that's your intention. I don't believe, but maybe it is. I'm just basically calling out, be more explicit about long-term so that it excludes short-term, because you can build something and still offer it at a reduced rate, but only offer it a few times a year.
Okay, so I think, Amy, is it fair to say your suggestion is to say increase the local long-term rental housing
Yes.
supply? Is that fair?
That's what I think that's your intention. Is that correct?
I believe that is the intention, yes.
I like that addition.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's acceptable.
Sandy, you were next.
Yeah, I had sent Alyssa this email, but at the last minute. I was hoping that the second paragraph could be either modified or taken off, because that suggests that the town established the housing trust fund, but it wasn't established by the, voting town. It was established by the select board. So that either should be taken off or corrected. And the other thing that I wondered about, where it says programs will be administered by a qualified third-party affordable housing organization. I wonder if that should say some programs, because that limits us to everything having to be done through a third party. And I'm not sure that we want to define it as having to be handled that way. Maybe there's some in the long term as things grow when we use this fund. We don't want to just use it for a VHIP program. It may be something to assist with rental assistance or some other sort of it's something that doesn't really need to be administered like that. The third thing I was wondering is, it kind of looks like the Housing Trust Fund, the way it's written under allowable uses on the third page, that we are only using this to create new housing. It doesn't say anything about allowing us to either rehabilitate or making affordability assistance or any other programs to improve housing availability and stability. I feel like it's not just us wanting to use the fund to create new actual buildings. It might also be rejuvenating something that can be rented and isn't rented now. You know what I mean? Or something changing ADUs and just helping them come up to code, or giving us the ability to do something like that and not just saying it needs to be either a large or a small scale development program.
Thanks, Sandy. Kane has a hand up. Starting with your second comment, I will note that multifamily conversions and substantial rehabilitations are both named under the maybe used to support. So I just to name that, I think only new construction is not the only goal. Kane has his hand up.
You covered my second point, Alyssa. I was gonna point that out too, but I also remember all of the meetings and conversations that we had about this language and about who should administer the program. And at the time, town manager Tom Lights was very apprehensive about the town administering this plan, only to be raising the funds. And I quote, "The town doesn't want to get into the business of being developers."
Right. I think that comment was more under the Stanley Wasson deal, but I just mean that it limits the housing task force to only do programs that are administered through a third party. So that wouldn't allow us to have the ability to do small grants to help assist, create, either help to rehabilitate something. Somebody requests $10,000 to fix something. It's not going to be allowed. It's going to have to go through a third party. So we'll have to pay fees or when it's something that the town alone could handle. So I'm just saying that this limits us to saying the programs have to be administered through third party. And I really don't think we want to say all of the programs have to be administered through a third party.
Tori has a hand up and then I see Jeff.
No, I agree with Sandy. It's kind of the second bullet point on the first page is kind of contradictory to what we're allowing on the small scale development programs because individual homeowners, small contractors would not necessarily be third-party affordable housing organizations. So maybe we just really simple fix and say programs may be administered.
Yeah.
I know Joe had his hand up, who was involved in creating this, and also Kate.
For large scale programs.
I just wanted to comment on Sandy's comment around rehabilitation, and it was always the spirit of this that it would increase the supply of housing. It does not need to be new construction. In fact, we had one of the programs that came to us from the Waterbury Housing Improvement was someone who had a apartment that was never rented. It was used for a family member and they wanted to bring it on the market. And they asked, would that be compatible? And we answered yes. So I think it's always been that, but what it wasn't meant to be was something for, say, an existing unit where someone had to bring something up to code. That wasn't the intention, right? That's, you're in business, it's the code's some part of you doing the business, that's what we looked at. But if it wasn't rented and it was to be come on the market, I just wanted to clarify. Not all rehabilitations are created, right? So some of them will bring new units on the market, that's okay. Some of them will just bring things up to code, but that wasn't what we had intended.
Kate had a hand up.
I think Sandy is absolutely right. My concern is the town's ability to administer the funds in a way that makes sense and what the costs affiliated would be.
Right, and I guess we'll say we adopted this policy before we had programs for all of it. So in my mind, we've been clear that the types of people who could potentially manage these municipal funds are the one we've particularly stated, which is third-party affordable housing organizations that we pay no more than 10% in admin fees to do this work, or I'll just name municipal staff is the other ones who can do it. I will name earlier for reasons not including to the fact that we're not overwhelmed with municipal staff right now. We had concerns about if it was practical, say municipal staff. We could add it in my mind as allowable to say administered by a third-party affordable housing or municipal staff. I'm just saying as the current select board and thinking about the budget we're presenting, we didn't budget for municipal staff to administer this, but a future board could if they so desired.
I feel comfortable putting that in the language.
I agree.
All right, do folks want me to run through the current edits I have at this juncture before we can consider reaffirming it?
Quick question.
Yeah, Chris, then Martha.
Oh, I'm having troubles hearing back there. So it sounds like if somebody comes and asks for an appropriation, it has to go through Down Street Housing or something like that in order to have the funds initiated. And then am I hearing that the criteria, because there's really no clear criteria as to what the money gets spent on, that comes from the state's program. In other words, you have to kind of take the state's program and attach it to Down Street's offering of the money, and you have to follow those guidelines. So I'll cut to the chase here. Let's say somebody like me who's been a contractor forever, and I want to do something like that. And I came and asked for the funding. And I have the qualifications to implement all of it and use much more of that money and get a bigger bang out of the buck because I'm not paying administrative costs and all kinds of other crap. which in turn creates cheaper housing, right? Is there the capabilities of that happening through this?
Yes.
Okay, and when it comes to rehabilitating particular pieces of property, the only thing I have to say about that, I know that you live in a place where the heat isn't so great, right?
Easy. They watch the show.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, in an instance like yours, can the owner of that piece of property apply for the same monies and to upgrade that, to make it cheaper for the people that are living there?
I think that's what Joe was just getting into, to bring a unit back up to code was not to bring new units online, which is really the spirit of this document.
The spirit is to bring more units online.
Yeah.
And Chris, I would just note, we have, so there's 2 bullets under allowable uses. The first is this development program, which, as you're noting, is something we would pay someone like Downstreet to do. This is what we got up and running right away, because we said we can pay you to administer. We didn't totally match the state guidelines. We modified them a little for Waterbury. We also have a second bullet that says grants and loans for mid and large scale housing development, and says professional real estate developers, both for profit and nonprofit, and just say you would need an application with the funding request, number of units that meet the definition of affordable housing will be reviewed and approved by the select board. So if there was a proposal, we got 60 units, 10 of them would be rented at XYZ dollar cost. I'm asking for a grant of this amount, that's permissible.
And to your point with Joe, you know, in your particular case, or an apartment like yours, seems to me it would be cheaper to reestablish that as a less expensive or more affordable, better to heat, easier to heat. Certainly is a cheaper avenue of creating affordable housing than to go through the process of building a whole new, I get your point.
Martha, you're next.
On quick review, the allowable uses, the sentence says may support, and yet the 3 bullets on the front page say will. Is that, I don't know if that was intentional.
Give me a little bit more.
I didn't bring my computer. It says the lead in line.
The first line. Okay.
Yeah, see, it says may support, and I just was wondering if that was intentional. Versus the 3 bullets are all wills. You're the word. So that was one. And I would have, you know, I haven't been involved in this as much as you folks obviously have, but going back to sort of what Chris is talking about with the administration administered by a third party, who's determining the qualifications that the third party is making the decisions on? Or is that up to the select board? To your point, you said somebody brings you an application and then you turn it over to the third party administrator?
I think, again, there's 2 pathways that were outlined. So at that point, this was specifically a third-party affordable housing organization. So we specified you needed to meet all those criteria. It wasn't just any nonprofit off the street. It was an affordable housing organization. And that was in particular for this program because it was like one-on-one support, and we didn't want to be evaluating folks' finances. We wanted that to be done by someone else. For the other portion I was reading for Chris, yes, that would be done by the select.
So is it like a third party is selected long-term, like this is the third party who, anybody that comes in, they're all gonna go through whatever this third party is identified as?
This document was created when we had just one program we're considering. So we have just one program we funded right now, which is the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program. It's the Vermont Housing Improvement Program, VHIP, but just for Waterbury. And so Downstreet is doing that one, so we made an allowable way to do that, but also thought eventually we might want to go beyond that, but we haven't had a use case for that yet.
Okay, thanks.
With regards to May, do we need a must?
Or shall.
Shall.
I like shall.
Okay. Amy has a hand up, and then I think we were ready for a read through. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I would just, so thank you. As I was reading through the allowable uses again, and then seeing how this process seems to stop at the applications are reviewed and approved. Have you folks talked about having accountability after execution? So ensuring that the projects are actually meeting the expectations as planned in the applications and adhering so that.
Yeah, we did for the first program that we've actually implemented. So again, these were broader guidelines than we have for the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program. There was track back as to when the funds need to be used, reported on. And again, that's part of the administrative services that we were asking someone else to provide.
Yeah, I'm thinking about bullet 2. So the grants and loans for mid and large scale housing development to ensure that you have that same level of accountability in that section.
Right, and nope, I don't think we proposed any further detail than what's here with regards to that.
Well, then I'm making a recommendation that get put in there just in case the money doesn't go and it doesn't get commissioned as planned or as suggested to you.
Yes, do folks have questions?
I don't think that's necessarily a bad recommendation. I would say that we have a program that is currently in place. And I think the allowable uses open up a future select board for future programs as written right now, or as we have amended it so far. And I think a future select board would probably want to dive into accountability if they were interested in operating a new program.
I agree with that. I think it's hard, not that I don't think it's worthwhile. We're trying to give the umbrella of possibilities, so we have something for voters, and yeah, we haven't fully given that out at this point. So I'm reading the edits I'm aware of to date, being proposed for this document. So we have the original Waterbury Housing Trust Fund allowable uses. Background, Town of Waterbury recognizes that access to affordable housing continues to be a challenge in a community. Strike the next 2 sentences. On October 19, 2024, the Select Board established a housing trust fund. At the November 18th meeting, they set a long-term housing goal to increase the local long-term rental housing supply by 1% each year. To help achieve this goal, that should be the Select Board again, allocated $100,000 from the local option tax revenue to the Housing Trust Fund. We could add a sentence here that say voters also approved $75,000 for this purpose at 2024 town meeting if we wanted, or 2025. These funds are earmarked for projects and programs. That's funds the fund's mission. No further changes on that page. On the next page, under allowable uses, we have the Housing Trust Fund shall be used to support small scale development programs, assistance for projects of 1 to 4 units, such as ADUs. Going through that entire sentence, at the end adding administered by a third-party affordable housing organization or municipal staff, no more than 10% would be allowed for administrative fees. Sentence. And then for the second one, I don't have any changes right now, other than we should have select board be 1 word.
I would like I'm proposing second bullet point on page 1 to also have the staff at the end of that sentence. Right, with those changes, I move to adopt this to go along with our Waterbury Housing Reserve Fund. As allowable uses.
Do we feel good about that? Motion by Tori, second by Kane.
I was just like trying to listen for the rest of that motion.
Cheryl, do you have that motion recorded?
That's the allowable uses for housing reserve fund.
With the suggested edits.
Just stated.
Delightful. Motion by Tori, second by Kane. Is there any further discussion or comments on this? Right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, we've re-adopted this, which brings us to the next item of. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just brought to my attention today, the only way to find this on your website, on the account website, is to go to the select board meeting where it's there, so it needs to be.
It's under, the policies and, what is it called?
Ordinances.
Yeah, the policies and guidelines page under rules and plans.
So I'm noting it's on policy and guidelines, rule and plan. I was gonna say, our next item is also the town report where we could also choose to include it. So noting that we now have this updated. Yes. All right, so as I just noted, our next item is to review and finalize select board and other pertinent reports for the 2025 town report. Let me give the disclaimer because our report compiler is next. Everyone else's reports are already due. We got special dispensation because we're the select board. So just noting we have to finalize this, but it has to go to the printer this week.
Don't think it didn't cost you chocolate.
So items, for select board members, I did a review of all the select board meetings this year and copied pertinent agenda items into relevant buckets. So in past tradition, there's been a 1 to 2 page select board report. I can put this in narrative form after the meeting, but I noted some of our big things we've done this year. I noted housing, flood resiliency, municipal operations and staffing as 3 areas we've spent a lot of time on over the past year. I also noted some of our more long-term work on policies, procedures, communications, capital planning. We got like a new bridge in town, we did some paving. So as well as a lot of the work of other boards and committees, obviously those folks also have their own reports, but I know many of us serve as liaisons or members, so worthwhile to note in a more significant way. I think that's good. Commissioner, and I got you off of that.
Yeah, it's all the way over there.
Okay. So anyway, I guess for board members, if you have other things that feel like omissions or you would like to have incorporated, this would be the time to note. And then we also should discuss what other items we might like to add. So seeing as we just reaffirmed this housing trust fund allowable uses, we previously voted on the ones for the flood reserve. Capital plans was something that's been brought up in the past. So just making sure we have the list of everything we want so I can meet with Cheryl, make sure we have it all formatted. I will say one new item is the town audit. Carol Dawes brought to our attention that that needs to go in the town report. So we will put a portion of it in. It's like 50 pages, but put a portion and note where the full document can be. Okay, starting with the select board report, is there items, again, I will put this in narrative sentence form and let you all read it before we publish it, but is there any major omissions we should be aware of?
Are you sure it can't be a limerick?
If you have time to write a limerick, between tonight and tomorrow morning, please be my guest.
That's it.
Okay, then.
Well, this, I believe, is always been a page on it.
Oh, thank you, Bill, for saying that. I'm not sure. Carol just informed us it was a requirement.
I think it's usually.
Okay, thank you. Bill Shepelite noting there has been a page for the audit in the past. I'm just noting that Carol said it was a requirement and we had an 8-page excerpt we were looking at. So, yes, I will put this in sentence form and we can all review it, but if you have any other feedback, again, it needs to be finalized probably midday tomorrow. So this is a morning edit project for fellow staff. On other things to include, I think the housing trust fund and flood reserve allowable uses would be good. We talked about having those able for folks to reference at town meeting.
Yes.
I also, when I saw Tom before he left at 4:30 today, said capital plans and he said, oh, I don't know if they're formatted right. I'm wondering if at least the fire department, which was one of the more developed ones, we can include, seeing as we're asking for a fire truck, and I know that's been asked in the past. So if that's workable, that was one I thought would be prudent to include, but. Does anyone have other or time to review? We can chill in time for them.
I appreciate you drafting these, Lisa.
I think the replacement of the bridge is a big one. Seems like so long ago now.
We should ask Woody if it seems like a big one. I was gonna say, I'm sure I could get further detail on the paving completed from our interim municipal manager and public works director prior to publishing.
No, I mean, I do agree with Kane, the bridge is well overdue, and previous bridge was there almost 100 years. It's just a huge accomplishment that you can convince future generations you had everything to do with, so if it goes in the report and. But yeah, it's a game changer affair.
Yeah, so if anyone asks, we did that,
Yeah.
the five of us.
But there were actually two downtown transportation funds. One was for the Better Connections grant for Waterbury Center. The other was for improved streetscaping. Bidwell, in Founders Group.
Also some paving, if I recall.
Paving of Bidwell. Crosswalks and sidewalks on Founders Street.
And that one took some extra work we weren't predicting. Did well, yeah.
I noted the two committees, including the town meeting study committee that we created, and I think is gonna speak at town meeting, the Vermont 250th Waterbury Committee, again, we have funding for them in the budget. Just noting the ongoing policing conversations that we've had come in, creating municipal dispatch. Again, assuming we adopt the event permit tonight, I preemptively put it in this budget list.
Should we include the highway capital plan?
Yes, that can be more specific. I think I just wrote public works, but they were more departments than that.
You say you'll probably get the narrative from us sometime tomorrow.
Yes. And flood resiliency, I guess I can run by Dana to make sure we have it all. I just noted the Natural Disaster Preparedness Committee and handbook. Having the coordinator role for that, having the grant consultant role, as we heard from tonight. CDBG, application and award for Rainbow Meadow and Woody Ave. We've done 2 FEMA buyouts fully processed, I believe, this year with closeouts. And I have reverse trails and conservation assistance, is that correct?
That is correct. It's the National Park Service's Rivers Trails and Conservation Assistance Program has selected Waterbury and 4 other communities for assistance over the next 2 years.
We didn't have a flood.
Honestly noteworthy, and honestly, the FEMA.
Got that, yeah.
I think we closed that as FEMA reimbursement, about that, final notes. Woody's nodding. If you have other, let us know. All right, is there any other items for this tonight? So noting we'll need to review the final narrative. I'm hearing support from the board around including the allowable uses for the trust fund and for natural disaster. And as many capital funds as we have appropriately formatted in time. Any other notes with regards to town report?
Do you want to mention planning on Woody Avenue? Or is that not progressed far enough?
Oh, I do have the application and award for Woody Ave housing. Same. Right. That's all good for folks. If there's no other updates or discussion on that, I will move us to the review and consider approving updated special event permit form. I don't think it listed on the website, but I can screen share. It was. Yeah, it's on the old meeting. I did a couple strike throughs and I don't think it got reposted. Okay, this is gonna blink on the screen. Sorry, everyone. I got it driving, okay? It tells me I gave a screen sharing, but. I don't think it's those. Folks online, are you getting the entertainment permit?
Yes, you can see it.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, this is the entertainment permit. Again, all credit to Tori for updating and synthesizing this so we can adopt it. We had some minor changes at our last meeting, last time we considered this. Let's see if it's just a touch bigger. Yeah. So we noted that alcohol and 200 people was our threshold for security or law enforcement, noting we had some events under that amount that it felt like was reasonable. I proposed striking through this. We had a section B that had the like liquor permit, but it's in the state portal, and I was afraid it was gonna be confusing, so I was just noting you must complete permitting on the Department of Liquor Control and just send people there. I specified Decro Fields is where these banner posts are for this. The rest was the same, security and safety plan, event layout, emergency resources. Again, we generalized these. Again, there used to be a paper portal from DLC. I'll say Karen Petrovich, our former clerk, noted that like, if someone fills this out and turns that in, it actually is not valid. At the clerk, you have to do it online. So I was afraid someone would find this online and complete it and thought we should just remove it. And tell people to go online. Yep.
This is for state organization, not for us.
Yep, and then I think the only other change is because of that, I made this section B instead of C if we're eliminating that. So those are the only changes I was proposing from Tori's original draft. Again, just some minor administrative.
I think Katarina's email is still on there,
Oh, thank you. On the form.
so.
Thank you. So you are correct. These will probably have to update the form. Yep.
Is that still good?
Yeah, just email Woody. Yeah, we can put narratives there.
Yeah, it's not her last name. Is it E. Linsky? Is that her name? Yeah. Linsky.
SKEY.
Oh, gosh, typing public. Linsky. Did I get the E?
Bob Butler there, one.
SKEY? Yeah. Thank you. Our current recreation director, updated. All right. Excellent, and then the rest was followed. So those, again, were the only other administrative changes I have. But if the board is comfortable with this, we could finally, once and for all, adopt an updated special event permit for posting on the Municipal website.
I would love that.
Or you have to leave a legacy.
One small thing to go home.
I will say Danny Kelman's boarding committee application is the application we all received for boarding committee, so. That's
Important stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, did you have a comment, Roger?
No.
Okay, I move to approve this with the proposed changes by board chair Alyssa.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this with these changes. Is there any further discussion or questions?
I will say, so our old permit needs to be attached to the entertainment ordinance. And now this will be separate and easier to find, and much better and updated. That being said, the entertainment ordinance does need to be updated because it is last adopted in 1998, and of the 4 pages of details, it takes 3 pages discussing circus shows. It is an ordinance though, and with ordinances, we have requirements, like we have to have the meeting that is warned, showing it, then you have to post notice within the town newspaper 14 days after, like within 14 days after that, and then after that posting, the town, anybody who wants to in the town can demand to have another public hearing on it because they object to it within 45 days. So since it has taken us this long to get this approved, it did not feel fair for me to try and bull rush a new entertainment ordinance. As my gift to you, Roger, I am gonna draft one and the
Not
new
just
board.
me,
The
my
new
four new
board can do,
colleagues.
yes, the new board can choose to do what it wants, but it bothers me, so I'm gonna leave you with a draft.
Well, that'd be much appreciated.
Roger, continuity.
Strike all those circus things and you'll be further on.
It's worth noting, Skip Simons has an excellent presentation about the history of the circuses that have come to town.
I'm sure, but I think we need something a
Were they
little
all
more updated.
That I can't say.
And I am just noting this says in its public entertainment ordinance, and though it is currently typewritten, we
Yes.
could hyperlink to the ordinance in this document for even further.
That would be good.
20%
I will say, so that top non-italicized language was taken exactly from our old event permit, entertainment permit, and I will say that it says in public house or non-public house as defined by the town of Waterbury in its public entertainment ordinance, but those are not actually ever defined in the ordinance. But hyperlink it, I'll do an update that actually defines them and we'll see what happens.
All right, notwithstanding the additional background on the entertainment permit, we have a motion on a second on the updated special event permit. Is there any further comments or questions on this? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, special shout out and thank you to Troy for helping get this updated and
1 year, it's done.
update the various
You
municipal
can come back.
codes. Alrighty, our next agenda item is to consider adopting policies for the community development block grant, disaster coverage, grant compliance. I just wrote out CDBG DR. The first one is shorter and more straightforward, so we will start with that one. Tom spoke about these very briefly at our last meeting, and Dana also alluded to them in his comments earlier today. Oh my goodness, Kate, with all due respect.
Get your shit together.
I can print and prep the packet and the name tag. You do have to pick it up. All right, so the first item for consideration is the residential anti-displacement and relocation plan. So again, I'm noting that the two projects we have in Waterbury are the Randall Meadow project, which is not directly displacing housing, as well as the Woody Ave project, which is planning only. So I think Tom alluded to, and I think it's fair to say, we are not planning to change, eliminate rental units as part of this. So I don't think any of this applies to this project, but we still need to adopt it regardless.
Yeah, and I will say too, I feel like a lot of these just reference in your federal code. I appreciate having the opportunity to like fully digest and read them, but otherwise, I move to adopt the residential anti-displacement and relocation plan.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Kane. Is there any further discussion? Woody, I know this is new. Do you have any comments or concerns on one?
Right, it was came across my desk a while ago, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're gonna sign my copy. We're gonna print names in the left column and sign on the right column. And then go around. And it will save us all the trip tomorrow. Great, yeah, sorry, and now you're all experiencing what my partner experiences when I can't talk on the phone and do something else at the same time. All right, there.
Similarly, I reviewed the municipal policies and codes. Same thing. It is very standard. It is just basically federal requirements, but I still appreciated the chance to look it over. I move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, motion by Tori, second by Kane to adopt the municipal policies and codes. I will say just I considered if I should write each one of these out separately on the agenda, but I do just want to say all the things that we are adopting. Equal employment opportunity policy, fair housing policy, use of excessive force policy. Again, we don't have our own police department. Policy on use of Vermont Community Development funds for federal lobbying. Code of ethics for the administration of the Vermont Community Development Program, Drug-Free Workplace Act of 1988, subrecipient oversight monitoring policy, Whistleblower protections. I'm reading this because I wanted to say texting while driving policy, Executive Order 13513, Violence Against Women Act, and accessibility and 508 compliance requirements. So we already had a motion and a second on this. Is there other just further discussion or questions? Again, Woody, do you have any concerns on this?
No, with this one as well.
I know this does have some procurement in it. Any other questions, comments, concerns on this? Right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we can sign another copy of this. Do you want to start it so that I'm not distracted? Corey's gonna circulate one of those to sign, but we've adopted both. Thank you all. And that brings us to our next agenda item, which is select board member updates. If anyone has updates to share for the board.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So. I think.
If Martha and Joe, if you want to talk, I'm gonna ask you to go in the hall. Otherwise, Kane's gonna go ahead with an update. No problem.
I think most people have read it by now, but I penned a resignation letter due to my new line of employment, which indirectly conflicts with my ability to do this job, and that job has a pension. So I have. So my resignation is effective at end of meeting on town meeting day. I did want to say that it has been one of the greatest honors of my life to serve on this board, and that I will still be fighting for working people. I'm just getting paid for it now. So I wanted to appreciate everyone who has stuck it out with me for the last 3 years. And the other board members who have also stuck it out with me for the last 3 years. And to thank Roger, who is now our sole continuity of government.
Very tenuous position.
We can say elected government, Woody's sitting right here. Doing a lot more day to day. Thanks, Kane. Though we're not supposed to respond, I will say by way of information, Carol Dawes has the information about what Kane's resignation and its timing means. In short, it will be the responsibility of the new select board elected after town meeting. There are state law requirements around advertising for the vacancy and whatnot, but that will be, again, the duty of the next select board, but it is governed by state statute. So just anyone who wants to research that. Roger, any updates?
I was able to complete the planning grant application last night at 11:30 and get successfully submitted. Thank you for the letter of support. I appreciate it, and I will be glad to keep people informed as to the status of that going forward. I believe we're supposed to hear about it towards the end of April.
Thank you, Roger. Corey, do you have any updates?
Rotary's having a cash raffle, find your favorite Rotarian. If it's not me, that's okay. And we are doing private breakfast February 14th. And yeah, that's all I got.
My updates are that I've been preparing for this meeting in the time since our last meeting on the 30th. We also successfully warned town meeting and adopted all of the things we needed to for today. So once the town report goes out, I will be very happy. So that's all I had for updates. Is there any other updates? Woody, anything you forgot earlier you want to say?
No, my goal of getting rid of the whole select board is falling into place. See absolute power after all that. Roger, it's me and you, buddy, now.
Yeah. How much money you got?
Yeah. So, no, that's all I have.
Thanks, Woody. Awesome. All right, review next meeting dates and agenda for upcoming meetings. We already talked about our next public informational meeting that we're gonna try and have on the Wednesday, the 11th at 7 p.m. pending location review, which can you do in the morning, Roger? So that
I'm sorry.
checking out the fire station for
Thinking about
February the
late,
11th at 7.
Getting rid of me. Fine.
Daydreaming
Yeah.
about the
I will,
future.
yes, I will contact the chief in the morning and get back to you.
Okay. So noting that we were having a meeting prior to the 17th, it can be a public informational meeting if there's other items. We can call it public, we can make it a special meeting. We can do other business if we have other business to do at that date, but I think we're intending the bulk of it to be that. Agenda items for that obviously are Stanley Wasson. Are there other upcoming agenda items that anyone would like to present?
I know on February 16th, regular meeting time, Mike probably 17th, sorry. Mike would probably like to have his. Whatever it was with the parking
Zoning
and
enforcement.
fines, and so, yeah, thank you, zoning enforcement. Throw that on the agenda for Mike.
I will say, if we do meet in the fire station on the 11th, in my swan song to the select board, Gary Dillon did say no select board has ever considered the no parking on Stowe Street. So if we're gonna ask to use the fire station, we can have a conversation about enforcement of no parking
Oh,
on Stowe
right,
and
yeah.
Street.
Yeah, on High
If
Street,
he's willing to be there.
of course. I have seen cars pile up there at 2:30.
In case any of you remember the animated exchange between me and Chief Dillon at one of our prior meetings.
Oh, during like.
This, you know, like if
Yeah, school drop off hours.
Stowe Street during school drop-off hours, you're immediately entered into a demo derby.
Sounds like it's worthy of putting on a future
Yeah,
agenda,
yeah.
so we'll say the 11th, assuming we have that meeting. You noted Mike's holdover zoning enforcement. Woody, you've noted you likely will have other items.
Yeah,
Does
I
that
just
mean-
will touch on one of them because it was timely. I may want to see about some changes to the personnel policy to align the holidays for the non-union employees for the union employees.
think that's-
Seeing as we have one coming shortly. And I don't know if I can maybe just do that as a manager or it needs to be my title.
Great. Well, assuming we meet the 11th, I don't remember. And just saying again that the February 17th meeting includes the public hearing for the Rando Meadow bond vote. It will just be a portion of the meeting, but we do formally need to have a public hearing. And just to note also, that's already been advertised with the whole bond advertisement, so it will just be part of the agenda. Any other upcoming agendas, Roger?
Did you want RW to provide a short update on their finances?
You offered to, so,
Yes.
17th?
17th.
17th.
Special meeting, short and sweet. Okay, but I did look up the Bridgeside Book Fair is from 6 to 8, so you can join me at that, and then we can go to this.
From 6 to 7. Trying to transition to my not on the select board era where I saw when quilts in my spare time. Okay, is there any other upcoming agenda items?
I'm just wondering, on the 11th, is there any update on the status of Stanley of Woody Avenue housing?
Me and Data have meetings coming up, but yeah,
Will you have an update?
we may have, yes, yeah.
I think it might be.
Available
Good
updates.
opportunity to provide an update as well as with Stanley Watson.
Great. And in that, I would say random election. You get the stall. Okay. Any other questions, comments, future agenda items? Right, does anyone feel the need for an executive session?
What do you need to?
I just had a question. When are we going to allocate the different articles?
Oh, great question. That's also on the 17th. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Assuming that works for the board. Articles for motions for town
Find
meeting.
another meeting to do that.
We're just putting them in a hat and drawing, right? Like, I think that.
I will
would be
say,
actually
Tom,
fair.
we do the same things we had done at Have Your Say Day, but I had local option tax, so I get through this. So I think I offered to move that because we
Oh, no,
listed it all in the morning. Okay, well,
Can't discuss it now.
yeah, we'll keep it for the
Yeah,
17th,
sorry.
Roger. I love when you facilitate at me. All right, is there any other
No,
questions or comments? Anyone need executive session? I did not, I just put it as a placeholder.
no.
All right, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion by Gaines, second by Tori to adjourn at 8:42. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, meeting is adjourned.